Hey, bud.
Oh, trying to get my mic working.
Yeah, you're
There we
good
go.
now. It was muted
Perfect.
for a bit there.
Sweet.
Yeah, I usually get on there early because most of these people wind up either know that I get on here early, so they wind up coming in early to ask questions or whatever because they come to my inbox half the time. So, which I don't mind.
Sweet, sweet. So is this like your paid group or something?
Well, I originally started this group only because I had people begging to do a local GMB SEO. So I was like, shit, I've never even did a course. And I was like, $97. I just threw out, didn't even think about it. It was like, you know, and I honestly don't think I know as much as a lot of people that don't like me will think I know everything. I think I know everything. And my actual attitude is I don't know shit.
Yeah.
And then most of these people in the group, they're like, oh my God, this course should have been sold for like thousands and all this other crap. Cause they're like, man, there's so much value and so much gold you're dropping. And I'm like, I, this is just what we do every day. I mean, it's nothing big. And then I had a group of them that say, hey, you need to do a course on rank and rent. And
Mm,
I didn't think, I was like, I already did some rank and rent, and I just dropped that yesterday as a partners program, and I'm sold out. I sold out. I sold like 13 spots. I did almost, in less than 24 hours. I still got like two more people are supposed to pay, and those spots sell for 10K a year. And I could probably keep it open to 20 and I'll fill it.
yeah.
But I'm just like, for the longest time in 20 years of SEO, I've never, ever, ever done courses or anything. And now I'm like, shit, if you're not doing courses, you're dumb. You're just dumb. I mean, because it's like, I just don't understand. I never comprehended it. And it was just like, you should do courses, and, this funnel leads to this, there's steps to it. And it's just like, I never, I just never even tried, never thought of it. And then I said, shit, well, let me try it. And then I did that. And it wasn't, I mean, if you go in here, if you watch the videos, they're all raw. Nothing's polished. It's just talking. And someone said, well, you should do slideshows. I'm like, no, I'm not doing slideshows, not doing all that bullshit. It takes too much time. And for the rank and rent that I just dropped, I'm basically going to do white label rank and rent,
Yeah.
which is I do everything for you and you just go to the bank. That's really it. You just got to do your sales in. Now, the sales is the hard part for most people, but I'm doing everything for you. That's all. I mean, all I can say. And if you can't sell the stuff, then I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Pretty silly if you can't sell it.
Yeah, that's what some people all the time. They're SE expert, but they can't sell anything. But yeah, I mean, sales to me has always just been natural. So, um,
It's pretty simple, really, when you think about it. Sales is just conversation. That's all it is at the end of the day.
yeah. And I told my wife, I said, there's certain things in like NLP that people do. You do it naturally, not thinking. I said, for instance, if I'm trying to make you a deal and I put my hand out to shake it, I said, I'm honestly I'm non-verbally, but physically trying to get an agreement. And the moment you do that, they feel like they've made a commitment. I
Exactly.
said the same thing. And when we used to go to auctions, because I used to do auctions, and I said, you'll be the auctioneer. We've auctioned. Do I got, and they're doing all this. And then the guy stops because he's reached his back. So he's looking at his wife. And the auctioneer would go, oh, I see we wore our panties today. Next thing you know, the guy, he's back to bidding. Why? Because he did some neurolinguistic programming and challenging him and that sort of thing. So
yeah, it's super fascinating. Super fascinating.
let me start letting some of these people in. They're going to be coming in. But honestly, I'm going to tell you, but you have the free for all. I mean, talk about whatever the hell you want, but I just put on here, basically, you're going to be talking about rank and rent and quality leads. Because I know you do rank and rent and you do quality leads, how to sell.
That's it.
And I know you do, I've watched enough of it to know basically what you're doing. So, and some will be like, well, how's this app? Some of these people in here are agencies and some of them aren't. Some of, so you get a mixed bag. So
yeah, that's it. Cool. So I'll talk about ballet. Yeah, that's the plan.
yeah.
Sweet.
And you get this. Let's set them in. Not. Let me go ahead and invite these people in. FYI, if you're in on this call and you have a call with me today, I'm just going to ask you to be patient because I just launched the RNR program yesterday. So I'm going to be slammed all day. So if I'm 5-10 minutes late, please forgive me. We got a pretty booked schedule. I was up till midnight last night, up again at 6 a.m. today, and I'll be up again till midnight again today. So I'm going to have Tom on here. He runs another group. I've been following him for a bit, and he deals specifically a lot of it with rank and rent and SEO in general. But the name of his group is Scale Hacks Agency Growth. I know a couple of y'all are actually in that group. And I just want him to have free reign, just listen. I mean, he's a really cool guy. I mean, y'all can ask questions as normal, raise your hands. Please don't unmute yourself because you don't want any angry old men getting upset or nothing like that. But I will be here, and you got the floor, Tom, and let me make sure. Yep, you can share your screen anytime you want. You have a
Perfect. Awesome. Cool. So this one's going to be mainly kind of based around rank and rent, but I guess there's going to be a couple things in here that'll probably help you guys if you're still doing like SEO agency and stuff like that, and just agency in general. I mean, I think the first thing I want to talk about is like the importance of really client quality, and being really strict with your standards of what you will and won't accept as clients. Because I think that's a good place to start. And then I kind of want to talk about a little bit about rank and rent and like different ways to approach it, because there's so many different ways to go about it. And how you can really go about selling up front as well, because I think that's a really interesting way to do things to scale out faster, right? So let's kind of jump in and share my screen. Let's hope this works. Cool. Let me get this one. All right. So first thing is, like I said, talking about quality of clients, right? Now, really, I look at it as like this, right? So, I mean, I'm going to use an example as rank and rent, but this can apply to like other kind of lead generation sources that you're doing, whether you're running Facebook ads for clients, or maybe you're doing SEO or this or that. Any way you're doing to generate leads for your clients, this is kind of relevant. So let's say like, I'm going to use an example of a lead gen site. Let's say we have a lead gen site producing 50 leads a month. I apologize for my crappy handwriting. I'm using a mouse, so it's not going to be nice. So let's say this site's generating 50 leads per month. Let's say it's for like tree services or something like that, something random, right? And it's for like $1,000 per service. Let's just make that number up. So let's say we have client number one over here, client type number one over here, client type number two over here. Now, client number one over here, he doesn't have a really strong sales process in place, doesn't really have the team members or the receptionists to actually take on 50 calls per month, right? So he's not going to be he's going to miss most of these calls, maybe closes a couple of them. Let's say he closes like 10 of these out of the 50, right? For the month. Say he's charging $1,000, that's 10K. And obviously expenses and stuff. So let's say he's left with like 2K profit for the month. You're not going to be able to charge this guy very much, right? Probably like $200 max, maybe $500 if you're lucky. So that's really what you're stuck with client number one here. But client number two, let's say he has the sales process in place, has a team of receptionists to actually answer the calls, and also the team members to actually be able to handle the jobs that you're sending him. So this guy's going to be able to close a lot more. So let's say it's like closer to like 25. And let's say he charges a little bit more than $1,000 per service because he's a more premium business owner. So let's say he makes, instead of 25K, maybe like 35K. And obviously expenses again. So let's say he's left over with like 15. This guy, you can charge a lot more, right? It's pretty common sense. I know it's kind of like basic stuff, but I think it's really important to note this, right? Because a lot of people, when they're looking for clients, they don't set the standards for what you're looking for, right? Especially when it comes to like SEO and stuff. It's like you don't want to be working with every client, because you want a client who actually understands the value of what you're going to be doing for them, and someone who's a little bit growth minded, right? And especially when it comes like back to rank and rent and like building these sites out, it becomes really important to pick someone who actually can afford your services, because they have the process in place to actually make the most of the leads you're going to be sending them, right? So this definitely ties into selling up front, which I'll get into in a sec. But this guy, you can charge, anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000, because again, they're making so much more money from the leads you're sending them, right? So that's the first thing I want to talk about. Now, next thing is, and again, feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions about any of this stuff. So then I guess the next question is like, well, yeah, that sounds great, but how do you actually find someone who is like client number 2 here, client type number 2? Like, what is the defining features of that person? How do you actually go about finding that person? What kind of qualifying do you have to have in place to actually know if someone's that kind of person or not? And really comes down to 2 things. Like, I don't want to get too complex with it, but really it's 2 things. It's your positioning, right? How you position yourself and how you position your offer. And then also your qualifying, right? So I'll elaborate on this in a sec. Let me just draw this up very crappily with my mouse. Qualifying. So positioning really comes back to, again, like I said, how you position your offer and how you position yourself. So with rank and rent, you have to remember that you have all the power. If you have a site ranking, of course, and again, I'm going to go into like selling up front in a second, but if you have a site that's ranking and it's producing leads, you have all the power in that situation, right? Because you're the one with the leads, not the business owner. So you got to keep that in mind as you're positioning. And also that the other little positioning that I like is basically like, hey, is this going to be you or your competitor that's taking these leads, right? Because someone's going to take them. Like we're generating leads in this city, in this niche. Is it going to be you or your competitor that takes these leads, right? Because I can always find someone else, right? And when you have that kind of a positioning, you really can cancel out a lot of people who are just kind of chasing quick leads, which is, again, like these people here. These type of people here are kind of the ones that don't have the process in place. They're not looking for growth. They're just chasing quick leads. They're like, oh, I'll have some quick money. Yeah, sure. Send me some quick leads, right? And that's unfortunately what a lot of people settle on in this rank and rent space, because again, I understand, you have a site, you're generating leads, and then all of a sudden, you're like, whoa, I've got leads. What do I do? Right. And you kind of just look for the first business owner you can find to send your leads to without setting your standards. Right. And that's when it comes to this second part, which is the qualifying, which is basically like setting your standards. Right. So this is basically comes down to 2 important things. Like I talked about briefly before, is that they have a sales process. Right. So they actually have, ideally they have a receptionist to actually be able to handle the calls you're going to be sending them. And then 2, they have the team in place, right? So they have sales and then also a team in place to actually handle the jobs they're going to be closing. So if they have those 2 things, those are the main things you want to look for. And obviously the third is like, they're growth minded. So they actually want growth in their business. And this benefits you in many ways, because what you can actually do is find clients who want to expand into different cities. And then all of a sudden you're building rank and rent sites out, not just for one city, but for 5 cities for the same client. And that way you have 5 sites all hooked up to the exact same client, which is a lot easier for billing, easier for client communication, so on and so forth, right? And that's really, these are the kind of people you want to be looking for. So now the process of that, what that looks like in reality in your prospecting, is looking for ways where you can actually be able to determine those people, right? So a lot of people want to cold call on page like 3, 4, or 5 of Google to find a client for their lead gen site when it's ranking. And unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of people, because they're on page 3, 4, or 5 of Google, who are just crappy kind of clients, right? And it's the same if you're looking on like Craigslist or like any listing sites like that. If business owners are putting up like Craigslist ads and stuff, they're probably broke, right? Let's just be real. And if they're broke, that means that they can't afford a receptionist to have the sales process. They can't afford the team members to have the team. So it kind of like flows on from there, right? So it's a little bit of common sense, but I just find a lot of people miss this, right? And this is also important again for like I said, for SEO agencies as well. Like, don't just take on any client, because especially broke clients, you're not going to get a very good deal with them, for one, which is the first negative. But the second negative is that the client's going to be a pain in the ass. They're going to be asking for things all the time. And you've probably ran into this before, right? They're going to be asking for things all the time, expecting so much of you for so little. And it's just not a nice client to have. So that's the first thing. Now I want to go into actually selling up front. But before I do, I want to ask if anyone has any questions. So you can use the chat if you want. And shoot through any questions you have around this section here of like qualifying and finding the right types of clients. And then I'll kind of move into talking about selling up front and how you can pre-sell your lead gen sites before they're even built, which is pretty awesome.
Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, Tom. I've recently I got a stamped concrete site that's been producing leads, and I gave some leads away to some people that I found through like Thumbtack and those kind of home advisor people who are used to paying for leads. And the guy closed and then kind of ghosted me on a commission deal. So how do you establish on higher ticket niches, getting a commission deal, but finding someone that's going to follow through and pay you afterwards? That part's been a little difficult, to be honest with you.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. So it always comes back to like what the client's already been experiencing, right? Like their previous past experiences of working with marketers or like Home Advisor or something, right? So if you're looking for people on Home Advisor, their experience is that they pay, $20 per lead or $50 per lead, right? That's their experience, right? So they're going to kind of expect the same thing from you. So when you come in and position a commission deal, it's going to kind of fly over their head a little bit and they're not going to kind of grasp the concept. So it's really important that the people you do find, you ask that question of like, hey, how are you currently marketing? How are you currently getting leads? What does that process look like for you? So you can kind of determine what those things are. And then you kind of compare it, right? You're like, hey, yeah, well, we could do like something like Home Advisor, but it's going to cost more because our leads are more exclusive, or, you make up some kind of thing like that. And then you can kind of come in and position your commission deal in the right way, where it actually makes more sense to them. It's like, hey, instead of paying per lead, let's do commission. There's zero risk for you. It's much easier for us to track, like blah, blah, right? And that's really just comes down to your positioning again, is how you position yourself to the client. And again, finding the right type of person who isn't someone who, is just looking for quick leads. They're actually looking for growth in their business, because anyone is going to understand the value of paying a commission for more leads if they're growth minded, right? So that's really the main thing you want to look for, is like that person is growth minded. And again, it's not always easy to find, right? But when you do find that person, it's a much better client. So that's probably my advice there. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I'd say there.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All good. All good. Anyone else have any questions around this before we go into like selling up front?
I have a question.
Sure.
Can I ask you something? Do you think that if you are in the payments business, credit cards and stuff, do you think that it's an area where you can go with lead gen sites?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's again to come back to like working out who are you trying to target. So like who uses your payment processes or whatever you have. What are the kind of clients, and then working out, would they actually be searching on Google? Is there a search volume for that? And then if there is, then it makes sense to run a lead gen. If not, then it's probably better to look for like, where are they actually hanging out? Where are they searching? How can I reach them in the best way possible?
Thank you.
All good. All good. Cool. All right. So now let's go over like selling up front. So this is the first thing, is like obviously the positioning and stuff. Let me grab this, put that up there. So that's like your positioning and qualifying, again, finding the right types of clients. Now this is the reason why this is so important with selling up front, is because someone who's just chasing quick leads and who isn't like a really growth minded business owner isn't going to understand the value of paying for a site up front before it's built, right? They're not going to understand that. So really selling up front is pretty simple. It comes down to obviously the exact way you'd think it'd be done, right? So you have a site, you charge an upfront fee to build that site for a business owner. So let's say it's $2,000 to build and rank the site. That's your upfront payment you're taking from the business owner. And then basically this is going to, over the next, 2 to 3 months, or however long it takes you to rank this site, you basically outsource that or whatever you do, and you rank that. And eventually when it starts generating leads, then you start charging that business owner for those leads, right? And that's kind of the basic process around it. Now, again, there's going to be a lot of questions you guys have around this, because it's like you probably maybe haven't even tried this before, or you have a lot of objections around doing it because you think business owners are going to be like, oh, this or that, or, you know, why do you own the site, or why do I have to pay for this or pay for that? And it's a little bit confusing. So that's the first thing, is like, obviously, very simply, this is basically how it works, is they pay for the site up front, you build and rank that site. And then in 2 to 3 months time, when it's ranking, or however long that process is for you, then you kind of approach them again and be like, hey, you know, now we're producing leads. We're going to let you take the first couple for free so you can make your money back. And then we're going to start charging X amount of price per lead, or X amount of price per month for these leads, right? And that's, again, kind of based on lead flow and whatever you see happen there. But again, the GMB is also important for this as well. So you're going to build the site and the GMB. Those are both going to generate leads. And that's kind of the process of selling up front as a whole. That's the first part of it. Now, the second part I like to add on to this is actually Google Ads, right? Now, I'm not sure if any of you guys have run Google Ads before, but super killer if you're in this kind of a position where a client's paid upfront and they're expecting to get results. Google Ads are a great way to do it quickly, right? Because again, you're chasing that retainer with them now, because they've paid the upfront, they're expecting leads to come in, and they're expecting to pay for those leads when they do come in. So you've got a client lined up ready to pay you. You just need the leads. So Google Ads is a great way to fast track that process. And basically, yeah, just run Google Ads. And it kind of looks a little bit like this on a graph if I was to draw it. So let's say this is your lead flow on the left here. And basically you want to start with, I'm going to do Google Ads in yellow. You start running your Google Ads, and eventually when your site starts ranking, you're going to turn off your Google Ads. And so what that looks like with your lead gen site is that's obviously going to take a while to rank and start producing leads. And then eventually it's going to produce leads. And that's kind of what it looks like, right? So you start with the lead flow coming purely from Google Ads. And eventually once your site starts ranking, you kind of turn the Google Ads off and rely just on the organic. So you're not paying a cent for advertising, right? And again, all the money you put into the Google Ads is coming from this 2,000 budget that the client's giving you up front, right? So it's not your own money. You're using the client's money to do that. And also using the client's money to outsource this to a team of VAs you have building your sites, right? If you don't have a team, you just do it yourself, whatever. But again, that's kind of what the process looks like. Now, I kind of want to take a step back to the actual sales process of selling upfront, because that's probably where a lot of people get tripped up and confused, because there's a lot of questions around like, well, how do I actually sell this to a business owner? How do they understand the concept of paying upfront? Like that's just makes no sense. And when you own the site, why would they want to pay for a site they don't own? That doesn't make sense, right? So there's a lot of questions around the sales side of things. So in terms of that, what that looks like is really offering it in this the most simple way possible is like, hey, we're going to build a site out. We're going to rank it. And again, you want to explain lead gen visually. Like you don't want to do this cold calling. You don't want to do this cold outreach. Ideally, you want to have business owners coming to you. And that way you can kind of position it to show them a video or a quick like little walkthrough of like, hey, this is how lead gen works. This is how it can work for you. This is why it's so good for growth-minded business owners, right? And when that sales process comes into play, then it's easier to answer their questions. Like, oh, for example, the main one is like, well, why do you own the site? Right. And that's when in the sales process, you bring up, well, hey, we can do this for your site, Mr. Business Owner, or we can build you your site if they don't have one. But that's going to cost you a lot more money than this lead gen site, right? So you make the lead gen site sound like a better deal by bringing SEO into the equation, right? And that way a business owner on the phone is like, well, hey, that makes a lot of sense, right? I can pay $2,000 up front for a lead gen site, or I can pay $2,000 a month to get my own site SEO'd, you know, and it makes more logical sense for them to move forward with a lead gen site, right? That's just one way to position it. There's different ways to do it. That's the way I think works best, is by bringing SEO into the picture. And that's really the selling up front of the site, right? So in other objections is like, you know, you owning the site, right, is like a big one. So how you kind of get around that is like, well, hey, you're paying for results. You're not paying for the site, you're paying for results, right? That's kind of the way you get around it. And again, bringing SEO into the picture of like, we can do this for your own site. That works as well, but it's going to be more expensive for you to do it that way. So which way do you want to go? Do you want to pay for results, or do you want to pay for your own site to be doing this, right? Because you're going to pay more money up front for us to rank this site for you, as opposed to us just building our own site and getting leads for you instead. So that's kind of the process. I think I covered everything there. If you guys have questions, I know you probably do. around this, happy to answer them because I'm probably missing some stuff. I always forget parts of this process.
Hey, Tom, I just got a question. I mean, with the 2 to 3 month kind of window, that kind of ties you into easier niches, right? Like, I'm sure you're not going to do that for an electrician or HVAC or something.
Yeah.
Have there been situations where you actually lost money where you're running Google ads so long and the site's not kicking in on the back end?
Yeah, definitely. So that's why as soon as you start generating leads, right, you work a deal for a monthly deal, right? So that way, if you do have to run Google ads for 5 months, heck, it could be a year, right? If you have to run Google ads for a year, at least the client's paying monthly, so it covers that, right? So that's kind of how you want to work that in. So you're never really losing money. But yeah, there's always a chance that the Google ads might not work, or you might your site might not rank, or this might happen or that might happen. But again, there's always going to be niches like that where it does happen, and things just don't go right. But yeah, it's really a numbers game. You know, if you have like 3 or 4 of these running, one doesn't work, that's 3 that are still good to go. So definitely just want to get as many out there as you can with the upfront deals. I mean,
Well, and on that point, I mean, if you don't mind sharing, like, because we're a lot of us are in another rank and rent group where they're big proponents of putting out a lot of sites, but no one ever really talks about what their success rate is, or like a reasonable percentage, you know. So if you, you know, generalities, like if you have 100 sites, how many would you expect to rent over the course of, I don't know, a year to 2 years?
yeah. So again, there's so many variables to like give a finite number there, but I'd say definitely like around 50 to 80%, anywhere in that range. You could easily get 50, 80% of those 100 to actually be successful, right? To some extent, you know, some might be a lower kind of deal because it's not generating enough leads or it's not quite there yet. But as a whole, yeah, 50 to 80% of those 100 would be a pretty good kind of standard to go off. If you're not kind of hitting those numbers, then I'd be looking at your process and being like, what are you doing wrong in the ranking process? Or, you know, maybe you picked bad niches or this or that, right? Because there's always that chance you're going to pick a niche that just doesn't quite work out. That's always an option. But as a whole, yeah, you should be succeeding with most of the sites that you put out as a whole.
Hey, Tom, I got a quick question. This is Ruben.
Yep.
I love the sales aspect of all this. In terms of ranking these sites, do you recommend going into really low hanging fruit niches, or do you kind of take the time to rank and, you know, backlink and do proximity pages like William does? I guess, how are you ranking your sites? What's your strategy?
Yeah, so with rank and rent, you want to be finding the easiest niches because that's going to be the quickest wins for you, right? So I always try and pick the niches that have 2 things, right? Low competition and also high volume, high search volume. So if it has those 2 things on like some of the main keywords, then you're pretty good, right? So, and then also looking for the third thing, which is low competition on the Google ads as well. Because if you find a niche that has high search volume, low competition on Google ads, that's an all day thing, right? Because if you get someone up front, you start running Google ads, all of a sudden they're on a monthly retainer with you, you're making money, right? Just in the first week or 2, right? So I think looking for the right things when you're searching for your niches is super important to that. But yeah, in terms of the ranking process, it would be obviously, because if you're going for easier keywords, it's going to be easier to rank for, but it just comes back to your main things, right? It's like, hey, have the right types of content, have enough content, don't keyword stuff, don't do this, don't do that, right? Tag your pictures, you know, have good quality backlinks coming to your site, all the basic stuff. You know, I don't think you need to have like too much complex SEO when you're ranking most local sites. Obviously there's some things that are going to help for more competitive niches, but isn't rank and rent. If you're trying to look for some of those low hanging fruit niches, then you kind of just like have the basics in place. You don't really need too much SEO in your process.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Cool. We've got another question here in the chat. Do you do commission only based deals, no upfront payment from the client? You rank the site and send over the leads and get a percentage commission of net sales. Do you have experience with this? Yeah, so commission deals are great. Always comes down to trust though. You can easily find a business owner that is just not going to pay you commission. That's happened so many times to people. Obviously you're going to make more money from commission deals, but you want to make sure that the person you're doing a commission deal with, you actually trust. And so I would always start someone on at least a pay per lead deal before going to commission, so that you can build that trust with them, or even a monthly deal with them. Start with that, and then kind of over time you can look at going to commission. But I think everyone wants to start off with commission because it's so attractive to make more money, right? Because like, hey, you're making 10% off each deal. That's a lot more money than charging monthly, right? But you got to be careful of people. Business owners are very sketchy. They won't pay for sometimes. So you got to be careful of making sure that you trust that person enough to actually pay you once they do, and be honest with the deals they're closing as well. Otherwise, you're going to have to look back through calls. It's going to be super time consuming and a bit frustrating to organize. So definitely want to have someone you trust with that. Other question, any niches to avoid that require professional regulation to avoid misrepresenting your lead gen site? Yes, there's a couple of those ones. There's some that are bad for GMBs, like locksmiths or lockpicking or something like that. Those ones are bad. And there's like a couple other ones as well that I would say. But as a whole, you just got to look at like what are the regulations for the state and the city, because it's different from city to city. Some cities might have certain regulations for certain niches, others might not. So just do a little bit of research. Just search up the council or the community website or whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called over in the US and stuff. Here in Australia, we call it the council website, but basically that's going to show you like all the rules for like those kind of things. But I think as long as you have a privacy policy on your site and also a little, mention of that at the bottom, you should be fine in terms of like legal stuff for your site. So I wouldn't get too worried about that. Can you still do call tracking for that? Not sure what you're referring to. Call tracking for
the one that you were saying earlier, I didn't see that there was another question before. I was referring to the business owner on a commission-based lead gen. Like he says, I didn't get the calls, but if you have the call tracking and you can hear all the communications, then he can't say to you, oh, I didn't get calls, or I didn't. You are controlling the phone calls and you can see what they're doing. So are you in favor of that technique? Are you using that? You utilizing that? It raises the cost a little bit, of course.
Yeah, so I'd be having call tracking on all of your lead gen sites. I think that's the best way to go. But yeah, in terms of like actually listening into the calls to make sure they close the deal for commission, it's just a waste of time, right? Like you can do it. You're probably going to make more money if you actually do get the commission deals paid. But it is a big waste of time. I'd rather be chasing more clients as opposed to like focusing on just always, picking up and listening to calls, making sure they close and stuff. It's just not the way I want to do things. But again, that's personal preference. So you could 100% do that and track all of your calls, listen into all of your calls, make sure they're closing them, make sure you're getting paid your commission, all that stuff there. But yeah, definitely just kind of a personal preference thing there.
But so you do your own lead gens, you putting the call tracking to all of them, right?
Yeah, in all of them. Yeah. So that's definitely have call tracking so that you can see all of the calls that are coming through all of your sites. That's definitely important. Definitely an important one there. So next question here, do you get LLCs for the rank and rent sites? I wouldn't. I don't think that's necessary. You can give it a business name, like a general name, which would be ideally your main keyword. So that's what you kind of name the site, and it's kind of a business name, I guess, but you don't get an LLC for it. You kind of just make a little logo for it, and that's about as far as you need to go, really, just to make it look like kind of more legitimate. But yeah, as a whole, you don't really need an LLC for it because it's not actually a business. It's just kind of a referral website, right? You're kind of referring business to actual contractors. You're not taking any of the business on yourself, so you don't really need an LLC. Any disclaimers somewhere on the lead gen site to avoid legal problems? So yeah, that's definitely have that. That's a privacy policy. I'd definitely have that on there. And that's basically just saying, hey, this is a referral website. We're not taking any of these jobs on. We're referring them to a qualified business owner, right? Someone who's actually legal. And you just want to make that make sure that's in your privacy policy in case anything legal does happen. But again, that's very, very rare. I've never had any of those problems happen. I haven't heard of anyone else who has. So I wouldn't be too worried about like legal stuff, but as long as you have that disclaimer in there, I think you should be fine. In Australia, when building out lead gen sites, do you use your own /personal ABN to register for the domains? Yes. Use your ABN to register for the domains. Yep. Because you need to get .com.au domains, you'll need to have an ABN. So yeah, definitely do that. Can you show a template for the privacy policy with lead gen sites if that's all right? Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can find one on here. Should be one. So I can post this maybe in the group or something because it'll be hard for you guys to copy paste it from here. So maybe I'll add this into the group, but it's pretty basic, right? It's not too complex. It's like not that long.
Hey Tom,
it's probably like,
and if you can send that to me, then I'll put it on the back end of the course and everything so they can get it as well.
perfect. Sounds like a plan. Awesome. Yeah, I'll do that because there's a lot of people asking about privacy policy here. Yeah, I'd say the main thing, guys, is don't get scared by the privacy policy or the legal stuff because it's not too big of a problem, really. You won't run into any problems really unless you have like other businesses trying to attack you and try and sue you and stuff, which is highly unlikely. As long as you're doing everything in the right way, I don't think that's very likely to happen. But yeah, definitely have the privacy policy there. So I'll send this to William and he can send that through to you guys or add it to the course or whatever. And that should be good. But that's pretty much like what main stuff I wanted to cover. So if there's any questions you guys have about lead gen, rank and rent, any questions around it, feel free to shoot in the chat. But that's really the kind of process I'd say is the easiest way to stack cash flow in this model. Again, you don't have to sell up front. You can build and then rank and then find a client. That's totally fine. But remember, this is actually really important, is finding the right types of clients, right? At minimum. So you definitely want to be looking for someone who can actually, make more money. You can make more money from because they have the processes in place to make more money from the leads you're sending them. So that's really the first thing there. And then obviously with your selling up front, just comes down to how you position it in the sales call and obviously in your marketing and your prospecting as well. Like I said, I definitely prefer to have people reaching out to me, and I do that through Facebook ads and stuff. But that's probably for another chat because that goes into depth with that stuff. But definitely recommend, if you're going to sell up front, is be qualifying, right? Be qualifying in your prospecting, be qualifying in your marketing, setting your standards for who you will and won't accept, and obviously looking for those growth-minded business owners because they're going to understand the value of paying upfront for lead gen sites, for rank and rent sites.
Hey Tom, quick question. How are you managing your, you set up an alias, right, for your different lead gen properties. How are you managing all your GMBs? Do you do it? Do you set your agency as a manager of the GMB of your alias, and then you manage it all from within Google Dashboard?
Yeah, so I just manage them individually with different Gmail accounts. So I don't do it all in the same one. Again, some people do. Some people have like softwares to help track all that stuff. I just have separate Gmail accounts for each individual GMB, which does get confusing, but I have it all tracked in a spreadsheet, so it makes it a bit easier with all the logins for each one and stuff. So that's kind of how I track mine. But again, that's how I do it. There's so many different ways to do it. I'd be looking at probably using a software if you were to do this seriously and you were going to have a lot of GMBs pumped out. Definitely use the software to track that because it's a lot easier to organize.
But your IP is the same in each case, right? Or do you use proxies?
Yeah, I use VPN. Use a VPN for each one, making sure that that happens. Yeah, I think there is definitely footprint you can leave if you're not using VPN and stuff, but I wouldn't get too worried about it. I try and use a VPN as much as possible, but I've got this one called what is it? VPN, Express VPN, I think it is. That one works pretty well. If you're looking for a VPN, I think it's like $20 a month or something. Can't remember the exact price. It's probably wrong. But that works as well. All right, we got another question here.
Brock, go
How's
ahead.
any of this different? What was that, Will?
Brock had his hand up. Then you also have Marcin after Brock.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you this. So like when you're selling up front or when you're pre-selling, I guess I'll put it that way. How much you typically, I mean, I don't need like an exact number, but just generally speaking, how much you on average looking at for an ad spend budget, plus like outsourcing that. Like, I mean, I don't run Google ads. I'm not a Google ads expert. So, I'm talking about, setting up aside a budget to run the ads and then a budget for someone to run it. And I didn't know too, the other thing I was wondering was like, since it's super hyper local, I'm assuming I didn't know with like an ad spend budget as well.
Yeah, definitely. Great question. So yeah, with the Google ads, I'd be looking at trying to aim for $500 a month. And again, you're hoping to get leads come in that first month. So you're only ever like outputting money without inputting money that first month, right? So you're spending $500 on your Google ads for the first month, and then hopefully generating enough leads to start charging the business owner more than 500 so you can continue those Google ads going, if that makes sense, right? And then for your build process, that shouldn't be more than any more than $500. Again, I know a couple of people I can refer you guys to if you need like to outsource the build process that I trust, who do it for like $600 or something. So, but if you've built your own VA team, it's very cheap. Like we was talking earlier, it's very cheap to have your own team of virtual assistants doing it for you. That's the route I would be trying to go if you're serious about going down lead gen. But yeah, in terms of the cost, it should be, like no more than around $500 for your build out process, and a lot cheaper if you got VAs.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
No worries. Perfect. I know there's some other questions here. Let me bring up the chat again. How is any of this different from Dan Klein's methods? So pretty much the same, right? I mean, Dan Klein teaches rank and rent, I'm pretty sure, which is just basically building and ranking sites. So it's pretty much the same stuff. Just this is like selling up front. I don't think he teaches selling up front, but I think selling up front's the way to get it done quicker.
That'd probably be the main thing I would say is different from Tom and the rest of them that I've listened to is they all teach the method of get the leads, get it ranked first, and then try to sell the leads. Instead, where Tom's going, get paid up front and then do all the hard work,
That's it. Exactly.
And their clients willing to do both. Trust me, they are.
Yep. Definitely agree there. It's about finding the right ones. That's correct. All it is. Not sure if you've covered it already, but how do you decide on the cost per lead for an industry? Yeah, so that's basically just dependent on the costs of how much a lead is worth, right? The average, the average value of a client or something. And basically you want to calculate that by, you can do a Google search for your niche, right? So if we're doing like, say for example, average cost of like car detailing, this could be anything, right? Just do like a search on Google. And you can look on like Home Advisor and stuff, see what they're charging, compare that. But again, keep in mind that your leads are going to be more high intent and more exclusive. So you can always charge more than like services like Home Advisor and stuff. But here we have a basic breakdown of cost for like car detailing. This is in Australia. Again, depends on your location you're in. $150 to $320 so I know that that's how much they're making per average service. So I could easily charge, like $10, $20 for that, or like 10% of what the price is, right? I think 10% is a pretty fair price because again, that's similar to a commission deal, right? Except it's just pay per lead. So next one, do you build the site before you find a client? You can do that. That's definitely one way to go about it. What do you do with leads that come in if you don't have someone to fulfill? Yeah, so if you've built the site first and ranked it, then you're looking at finding someone who's, again, the right type of client up here. So then this comes down to having this process in place to position yourself and qualify. So you're finding type of client number 2 who's can pay a lot more for the lead gen site, right? So if you've done it that way where you've built and ranked and then you started to get leads in, then you want to go out and find the right type of client. Again, that can be done in multiple ways. You can cold call, you can send messages on Facebook, you can have meetings in person, go to BNI groups, all kinds of ways to do it. But I'd definitely just be making sure you have these things in place to find a client who actually meets your standards and that will actually be closing enough of those leads so that you can make a profit off of it. How many lead gen sites do you reckon you can manage on your own? That's a tricky one. It's I'd want to be getting a team as soon as possible. I think it's just easier that way to have a team helping you. In terms of managing them yourself, if they're ranking and they don't need too much work, I'd say you could probably take on probably like between 10 and 20 sites on your own if they're ranking. But like building and ranking, if they're in that process of building and ranking, then it's gonna be a lot lower because you're gonna be obviously putting a lot more work into them. Again, it depends on if you're full-time in this yet or part-time in this, or this is like a side thing. Depends on how much time you're putting to it. But I think as a whole, definitely want to have a team behind you helping you build these things out. So definitely important.
My question is, let's say you have a team building, ranking, and you are in the sales only. You still need to get a team, and how you manage a team doing what? Like, because it's something I'm going to do. And that's why I'm asking this question. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So like you can, again, there's two ways to do it. So first way, you can, if you know how to do the process yourself, you can find VAs to outsource that and build that team that way. Or number two, if you don't know how to build a lead gen site and you don't know how to rank a lead gen site, you can look at outsourcing that to someone who does know, right? And that's obviously going to cost you more money. But the benefit of that is that you don't have to learn any of this stuff, right? But I wouldn't go down that second route because it gets very expensive over time and eventually it's going to not work too well. So I would definitely be looking at, working this process out yourself and then building that virtual assistant team to really outsource everything too, right?
I'm
That's
talking
again,
I'm talking about the sales side of things. For
right.
the handling and building is being taken care of.
Right.
I'm talking about the sales part. How much manpower you need based on your experience and what processes you need to build to sell those properties.
Definitely. Yeah. So in terms of that, I did it all myself. I was running Facebook ads. So I can't really say I had too much experience with cold calling or cold outreach or other ways of prospecting. So I couldn't really tell you how much manpower you would need. But I was running Facebook ads. So these are some Facebook ads I was running for lead gen sites, right? Totally different, run them for each niche and city and basically just get messages from business owners. And then from there, kind of like work out the conversation process to actually book the call and then obviously sell up front, right? So that's kind of how I was doing it. But again, that's different from other ways you can do it, which is like cold calling and stuff, which I would say would be better to outsource and find some manpower for. But yeah, in terms of like manpower for the sales process, it can really just be yourself for a pretty long time, right? Until you hit a point where you think your process is solid enough to actually outsource it. So other question, lead site management tools, WordPress multi-site or something better? Yeah, WordPress, definitely use WordPress. I think that's the best platform to use for build outs. I'm not sure what you mean by lead site management tools. That would just be WordPress. Just keep everything on WordPress and keep it all organized. That's pretty much how I would do things. Let's say someone wants to buy a lead gen site and they want to take care of it. How much would you charge to handle and maintain it? Want you to take care of it. So what do you mean by that in terms of buying the lead gen?
I mean, let's say you have someone who wants to buy the property and they don't want to deal with the selling. Let's say they want you to manage it.
Right. So they want you to like take the calls and stuff for them.
Yeah. I mean, like, let's say I have someone and he buys 10 lead gens from me and say, man, I don't have time. You've been doing that. Can you keep doing it? How much would you charge to start selling? Like, would it be a good deal if you say 30% of what the lead gen makes or something?
Yeah, definitely. So that's when you're getting kind of more into like, partnerships, right? I've gone down this route before and basically had a couple partnerships with people in different niches. And those are pretty lucrative if you do them the right way. And that's basically what that looks like is you kind of find someone who wants to kind of split the business with you, right? So you do their whole marketing front end stuff, which is like building the lead gen site, ranking it, maintaining all of that for them. And then you kind of split profits. It's like, 60-40 or 30-70 or whatever that deal is. And you're basically like splitting the business with them and getting equity in their business, right? And you can 100% go down that way. That's definitely an interesting way to do things because you're making a lot more money from each of the sites if you do that. Just keep in mind, there's obviously a lot more management that has to go into that. And obviously you'd want to make sure that it's a business owner that actually wants that, right? Because again, it's a thing that works both ways with both parties. So definitely want to make sure you have the right person to partner with for that. Yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question in terms of like maintaining the sites, because it's basically they're not ever really going to want to touch the sites too much, right? They understand that you're the person who owns the site. That's kind of the whole positioning you have in the sales, because you let them know that hey, this is a site we're building for you, but you don't own it. We own the site. We're just building it for you for a cheap price and then basically sending you the leads, right? Now, the reason you're paying for this site and it's still ours is because you're paying for the exclusivity of us sending the leads to you and only you, right? And that's kind of one way you can position it. many ways to get around that objection, but that's really how it works, right? So every business owner you kind of sell upfront to, they're not really going to want to touch any of the site. They're just like, hey, you do it. That's totally fine. That's for you to manage and maintain. I'll just take the calls and close the deals, right? And that's how it should be.
Hey, Jarek, you had a question?
Yeah, my question is this. You said you're not setting up an actual business for the GMBs. My concern would be this, let's say you set up 10 or 20 of them, you put lots of money into actually getting them ranked and whatnot. And, once you start ranking, your competition is going to report you as basically, not a legit business. Well, what's going to happen with the GMBs there? You're going to lose the GMB and then you're going back to scratch, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. So that's why I love selling up front, because you get around this problem. Because what you do when you have a client pay you up front is you use their address to verify the GMB, right? And by doing that, it becomes a legitimate business, because if anyone ever tries to flag that business and it gets, suspended by Google, you can easily get that reinstated, because it's a legitimate business registered to a legitimate business owner's address, right? And Google can't deny that. So it's so much better to do it that way. But yeah, in terms of if you weren't doing it that way, if you're doing it with other addresses, there are always going to be people who try and like bring you down and like spam your GMB and like try and get it taken down. That's going to happen in a couple of niches. But I wouldn't be too worried about it. I'd just be like, if it gets taken down, find another one, build another one in the same area, and just kind of keep doing that until you kind of have a solid thing in place.
The only thing that we're using so let's say you have a business A that you're thinking of, you can use their address and contact info. The only issue with that is the minute you do that, you kind of, you're basically setting yourself for working with them and them only. I mean, no other, if you set up a GMB under a company's name, obviously the reviews and everything else is going to be related to that business. So I think it'd be very difficult to turn around and try to sell those leads to any other competing company. And then I think, you'd also be running into legal issues with that. If they wanted to sue you, say, listen, you're using my business name, you're using my location and everything else, and you're selling the leads, somewhere else. So I mean, on the legal side, how good is your contract? And, did you actually go through, lawyer to make sure the contracts are solid and, that you have something to stand on from the legal point of view?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be worried about it legally, because again, there's not much you can do really legally for like most of these online things. But yeah, I totally get, like, it's a very valid worry is like that happening, where it's like it's stuck with the one client, right? Basically. Now I'd say the workaround to that is like the alternative is like, well, you're going to have a GMB anyway. So like, why not have a client one? And then there's always the option of getting another one later down the track if you want to, right? That's something you could do from the start. You could use the client's address and also use another address. So you have 2 GMBs up, and that's a really good way to go about it. That way, if your client ever leaves and they complain about the GMB being their address and they don't want to give it to you, you can always work around that because you have a second one, right? But again, it's if you're finding the right clients from the start, you're never going to have that problem of a client leaving you, because if they're looking to grow and scale, they're not going to want to ever leave you, because they understand the value you bring to them by building these assets out for them. So it's a bit, yeah, if you find those right types of clients, you're not really going to have the problem of like legal issues and things like that popping up. But yeah, in terms of like legal issues with GMBs and stuff, I haven't heard of any stories of that happening with anyone. Not to say that it couldn't, but I don't think that's a very big concern at the moment, is like people getting, funny about GMB addresses or this or that. I think it's
let me ask you, out of all the ones that you've set up, how many percentage rise would you have set up, with an existing address of a business owner that you had in mind, and how many were just, bogus addresses or whatnot?
Yeah, so I'd say about probably 50 to 60% are with business owners' addresses, and then the rest are kind of just other addresses from anywhere. But again, like I said, I think it's best if you use the business address and then also get another one with another address, so that you have that option of both.
In case you're selling leads to multiple clients, how do you deal with the reviews? What if one of the, I guess that just comes down to picking the right people to work with, because I was going to say, are you ever worried that, let's say you have a GMB that's not even pointing to their business and you get a negative review or something because of something that they have done bad? How do you, how can you make sure that, because I mean, if you send leads to a client that's going to do a bad job, negative review is going to come in and that'll just kill your GMB. Is there anything you can do on your side to kind of make sure that doesn't happen, besides being very strict of who you work with?
Not really, unfortunately. It's it just really come down to being strict on who you work with and making sure that they're a good business owner. Trying to make sure that they actually respect their work, right? I think that's important as well. Is like that should be another thing in your qualifying process, is like making sure that when you speak with them, you get that vibe from them that they actually love what they do and they enjoy doing their work, enjoy having their team doing their work, and that way you're going to kind of remove that chance that there's going to be bad reviews coming in.
So
But
let me say
again,
this. What advantage would you have, like comparing your business model to doing regular website design and SEO? What advantage would be in doing the lead generation? Because to me, it just seems that, if I'm handling a web design, I'm getting money up front. If I've got a monthly bill I'm sending them. The minute they stop paying me, I'm cutting them off. What's the main advantage, do you think?
yeah, so it's the same thing, but you're being able to charge more per month, right? Going forward, because then you're sending them leads, which is very valuable, right? As opposed to just a web design where it's kind of like, I'm assuming you're talking about like the monthly fees being just like, maintenance and stuff like that, right?
Well, I mean, maintenance not so on the web design, because I usually I don't want to work with anyone right now unless they're doing the website with me. So I'll do the website, I'll do the optimization, and then we go on the monthly, for actual SEO and Facebook ads and Google ads, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of know what the flow of calls is and how many clients they're getting, because it's all tracked. If I see that there's a huge increase, in growth, I basically say, listen, we're doing more work right now. We're generating more leads, and and slowly, month by month, I can increase, the money that they're paying. They have no issue with it. The
Hey,
positive
Jared.
thing, I was gonna say the positive thing about this is, there's a lot of stuff that's in their hands. Like they know they gotta do a good job. They're the ones worried about the reviews because it goes straight under their company name and everything else. So it just seems like a safer and less risk on my side, I would say, because it's like to build up a website and rank it and then do the same thing with GMB. It takes quite a lot of time. And if you're not sure that you can actually sell it, or if you're not sure that that's going to be something going forward, I think it's just safer, I think, to do it what I've been doing.
Hey,
Yeah,
Jared,
definitely.
if I could just jump in, if with SEO, you're absolutely right. There's more of a, let's say, guaranteed income in the beginning. I think the benefit of lead gen and why a lot of us are drawn to it is the power dynamic, that whereas with SEO, you are just working for a boss. With lead gen, you are ranking your own asset. And if the business owner does not comply to your terms or does something unsatisfactory, you have the power to shift it to somebody else.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah. And it's definitely just like another way of doing things. There's there's 1,000 ways to be right in this space. You could 100% knock on doors to find clients if you wanted to. Like there's crazy things you could do that could work. It's just about finding what aligns with you best and what you want to kind of do. Lead gen's a great model to be in. Web design's a great model to be in. We live in such opportunity in this online space. So I think there's so many different ways to do things.
Or
And
I'll give you one,
yeah.
for instance, and I know I've covered this before, but one, for instance, just give you an example of why I would say being an agency and only working with clients and building out websites and SEO is a bad model. I will just straight up say it's a bad model, mainly because of the sheer fact, let's say you got 10 clients, you lose 2, you're fucked, you're going to feel it. Okay. I have an agency, and let's say I have 100 plus damn clients. If I lose 10 of them, yes, I'll still feel it. It won't be that bad because I'll replace them. Now, if I have rank and rent going on, they're my own assets, my own GMBs, my own websites. Okay, that's one leg. Now I also have agencies and I'm white labeling, that's second leg. Now I can guarantee you in your space, there's probably some type of knowledge that you have that other people are willing to pay you for, whether that be web design, SEO, sales, whatever. There's a third leg. So now let me just go back here and let's say I got 2 legs. Now, if I have rank and rent going on and I got, let's say 20, 30 sites they're ranking, I'm selling leads, I have another stream of income. Then I'm doing web design and SEO, I got another stream of income. Whereas if you only have one stream of income and you lose that, you're up the stream without a paddle. Me, I don't give a fuck because of the sheer fact that I have this stream, this stream, this stream. If you lose, let's say 3 or 4 clients, it's not a big deal. They'll be replaced. If you lose one, GMB here, 2 GMBs here, it's not a big deal because I have multiple streams of income versus putting all my eggs in one basket. That's the benefit to me, to not just rank and rent, but in life, and having multiple streams of income. On top of, for example, when you start making money, are you going to hoard this money and put it in savings, or are you going to invest it? And I look at it as kind of just diversifying your income, basically. But I've said that before, but that's my take on it, and that's what I would say. I mean, and there are some incomes. It's like, you could pull a client, let's say, if they're only paying you even even $300 a month for your leads, and you got 10 of them, that's an extra $3,000 a month. I'm pretty sure. I'm not great at math, but most people, most average households make $60,000 a year between two people, married people, right? And when I was doing, and I could give you a prime example of this and why it's important, is whenever I used to work for a boss in the healthcare, he hit a hard time and he had to come to me and say, hey, I hate to do this. I love you and everything, but can you take a pay cut? I was able to say, sure, no problem. Why? Because I had extra $50,000 a year coming in from my own shit. If I didn't have that, I would have been screwed. So that's why I would say it's better to do it that way.
That's it. Exactly. It's like, I love the way Paul said it here. It's basically digital real estate, right? The way I like to explain it is like digital billboard. It's like basically you own this billboard that sits on Google and gets eyeballs, and you get to charge whoever you send those eyeballs to. Like that's basically the basic way to look at the model. And I think it's so much better to do it that way than have, ranking someone else's billboard for them, right? Basically. So it's just, again, like it's just another way to do things. You could do this with just GMBs if you wanted to, right? You could do this without the site, scrap the site, just have the GMB, just build GMBs, rank the GMBs, get the leads coming in from those and rent those out. You could do it that way as well. So many different ways to do things, but definitely a lot of potential with the lead gen model and like selling up front here. Oh, this is a good one. Many people say, mainly the gurus, that the future for the lead gen is not bright and that the market will max out. That's a really big statement. And honestly, I don't think that's anywhere close to happening. I think there's so many niches, so many cities that just will take too long to get there, right?
And that's
if you look at all the people,
we touched on that yesterday or the day before as well. It's like, if you think it's maxed out, that's like saying every SEO is a good SEO. And I can tell you probably, let's say 90% of them suck, I mean, just to be honest, because anybody that's worked with SEOs know, like, for instance, have y'all learned from SEOs most of everything I've taught in this class? Hell no. Because most
Come on, William, I'm not that bad, buddy.
No, now you're totally different. You actually have over a decade experience, but some of these guys come in here and they'll be not in here, but they'll be like, yeah, I could do SEO. I'll throw 1,000 backlinks, do all these citations. They don't know nothing about. I can literally tell you, one of the old groups I was in, one of the moderators that has a quote unquote, digital agency and says how to rank GMBs, doesn't even have his own goddamn GMB. But yeah, but he's an expert. So, that's the thing. The thing is, how many of these people actually know how to rank? Now, if all of them were good, I'd say, yeah, we're going to be maxed out to the max. But that's, that's the ludicrous. Even remotely believe it.
That's it. There's like, even in just the rank and rent model, if you look at people who are just doing rank and rent and that's their sole business, I'd say about 80% of people don't even have more than one site built because they're just too lazy. They give up too quickly and it's just not something people stick with. So like the potential to dominate this space is like, if you stick with it, is huge. Like, I don't think this space is going anywhere for at least another 10 years. Like this is staying around for a long, long time.
Any of y'all have any problem with sales? Because I have a few rank and rent sites, but like my issue is like, no one will pay for the leads. It's just like they tell you they will, they won't, and then they don't send a check or just whatnot. That's the biggest issue I have with it.
Yeah. So what does your process kind of look like when you're finding someone? You kind of cold call, or you're like sending messages or something? How are you getting that person on the phone?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'll like send them. I'll just do the
forward the phone number to them so that they get in leads. And then I call them up. I'm like, hey, I just sent you a bunch of leads. Did you like the extra business? They're like, yeah, I loved it. And I'm like, all right, you want to keep that extra business? Because, you know, you're going to have to pay for it kind of thing. And then usually they say, yeah. And then they're like, all right. And then they just don't never pay you. It's kind of some issues I've had with it.
Yeah, so I get a lot of people who have this problem. There was a guy actually I was speaking to the other week about this exact problem. He like would always get off the phone with people and send them a proposal, and basically none of them would ever pay, right? And I basically like to use the analogy that every business owner is a fish. They're going to try and swim away from your offer every single time, no matter how good it is, right? So you need to be as strong as you possibly can on that. Especially when you send them leads, you need to be as strong as you possibly can on that sales call to make the sale, because you know for a fact that it's going to benefit them, and you're actually doing them a disservice to let them slip away and not take the leads, right? So they need to pay and understand that they need to pay, because that's the value of what you bring to the table. So be really, very strict on those calls to make the sale. Be like, hey, you know, if you're not going to pay today, I'm going to move on to the next person. I'm not sending you free leads. That's not how this works. Yeah, I sent you free leads at the start so you can know I'm legit, but I'm not sending you any more free leads, right? And that's how you need to kind of position yourself. You need to be strong on that and set those standards. Otherwise, people will trample oil over you, man. Like, business owners just want to get their way every single time. And if you let them, they will. So you got to be strong on like setting your standards with those things for sure.
All right, go ahead, Paul.
Hey guys, so just a couple of thoughts. If you're trying to plant your lead gen sites, I mean, if you're looking, I always just go to Google. I do a search. Whoever's paying for ads, they become my hit list. If they're paying for ads, if they're paying for clicks, they'll pay for leads all day long. It's just how you position it. But if you're calling on lead gens, the best thing to do is make a list, 10, 12, 15 phone numbers of potential prospects, and knock them all out in that same timeline, like just one call after the other. Pitch it however you want. I'm the expert in getting stamped concrete referrals, customers and clients. I never call them leads. Everybody in this room is calling these guys leads. Nobody wants a fucking lead. People want a customer, they want a client, they want cash, but they don't want a lead. So if you're leading off by saying leads, I really think you're doing yourself a disservice, because every other monkey in the world call them business owners from Google and I got leads. The business owners hear too much of it. So it's just in the positioning and the languaging and how you have to change it to adapt to bring in some of these deals, right? But fish where the fish are biting, fish where they are with your offers. I mean, there's a lot more I could say to that, but I'll just leave it at that.
Paul, I wish I could love your comment, because that's right. If you say my client is looking for this service, then it's not a lead. Now you have a vested interest and they have to service your client.
Exactly. And if you're saying it, if you're placing it like that, like, listen, I've got, you know, my pitch is always, when I'm calling for this stuff, it's always about, look, I got 2 or 3 clients that are looking for your services. Look, I'm not in that space. All I really want today is just someone to handle these people. You know, are you able to, do you have the capacity to, that sort of thing? And you know what, maybe I'll follow up in a day or two and see how you've done. And when you follow up, inevitably they're like, how do you do that? What's going on? And then that opens the conversation.
Boom. Love that. That's perfect, Paul. Absolutely perfect. Lead monkey. That's a cool name. That's a cool name. I like it.
Got enough for these last 2 questions. I gotta get off because I got like a slam scheduled till midnight tonight my time, and it's just morning time here. Go ahead, Marcin.
Hi. You know, I already got doing rang and rent, but you know, I'm taking the only commission, and I got many websites I'm renting, and when I'm building new ones, I got one still problem. How you getting reviews for your own? Because you know, I got some GMBs. I'm doing my own business, so then I'm you know, simply getting the reviews from my clients. But when I'm for this rank and rent websites, I have a problem with reviews, because you know, buying reviews from any Indian people usually getting me suspended or exchanged is the same thing. So how you deal with getting reviews for your own GMBs? How are you doing?
Yeah, great question. Great question. So yeah, definitely don't use the Fiverr people to get reviews and stuff because they're very spammy. But yeah, in terms of getting reviews for your GMBs, what I would do is just get the link that people can leave a review for and use that link everywhere. On replying to clients' emails and stuff, and replying to phone calls after the job's done. Get your clients to post that link everywhere to that person that they've done a job for. Right. That's the best way to do it.
This way is hard to get a lot of reviews,
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So have you done anything else to get reviews? Anything else is working better to get more reviews? Because this is my really issue. I'm got website, I'm renting. I could probably get more leads if I have more reviews, but I have this problem how to get to this website is reviews.
Yeah, depends how much you want to break the rules. that really is it. Like, you can get fake reviews. That's probably the only other thing I could think of. I've just been able to get my clients
okay,
to
so actually my question was, how are you getting fake reviews but not from Indian people or exchange, because that get me suspended in the past?
Yeah, definitely. So fake reviews always has to be local based. That's the one thing. So what I would do is find any local groups or Facebook groups or like anywhere else where local people are hanging out. Even go to some meetings in the local area if you're in that area. If you're not, find some Facebook groups that are in that area. And then basically you want to make some posts, like try and get people interested. I've got a couple different good positioning I can send you for that. One really good one that works really well is you don't say you're looking for like someone to leave fake reviews, because that doesn't work. But what you do is you say, hey, I'm looking for a photographer, or I'm looking for a dance teacher, or something random, right? And you make a post about it and you're going to get people commenting. I think photography is the best one because there's a lot of people who do photography, and you're going to get a lot of people commenting who are photographers. Reach out to them in Messenger and then basically say, hey, the photography gig's been taken, but I have another gig that you can do, which is basically leave a review. I'm going to pay you $20 to leave a review, right? That way you can get some paid reviews that are actually pretty legit because they're in the local area. Again, however much you want to charge for that, that's totally fine. Anyone will leave a review for $5, and it's going to help you boost the ranks. So I'd do it any day. So that's one way to do it. Otherwise, you can use some other services that people do and stuff.
Actually, I'm doing exactly what you say. I'm putting ads for something else, and then, but I'm hoping that maybe you got something better. This is what I'm doing, but still, actually about the Facebook, I got suspended few accounts. Even I was putting ads for something else, they was reporting me, later. So I'm looking for a different way, because this way I was getting suspended. My account, it was disaster. But okay, anyway, another question. I got, it's not big deal because kind of I got application, but how you try, if you got, if you're renting website for a commission, how you tracking calls? I'm using the application calls OMA, but it's not, this application doing recording incoming and outgoing calls, but it's not good quality. Sometimes I have a problem, so actually I gave my customers, this people who renting the website, I gave them this application. I'm recording the calls, and I got employees in Ukraine, and they actually reading all. I'm not listening to this recording. I'm paying $2 per hour in Ukraine, so they reading for me. This is actually the tip for all you guys. Is easy way to, if you don't have a time, you can hire somebody for $2 to monitoring your recording. But what are you using for tracking recording? What application, what software?
Yeah, so I've been using call tracking metrics, and that works pretty well. It records calls, does everything you need it to do. But there's a ton out there you can use, like Dialhawk and all these other crazy ones you can use. But yeah, I think it just comes back to your question in terms of tracking the commission deals. It just comes back to, again, building that trust with the client and making sure that they let you know when they've closed a sale. And if they don't let you know, or they haven't let you know about anything for the last while, then you want to be looking at your call recordings and looking back at some of the calls and how they went. Now, again, that can get a bit dodgy because if you have your client picking up a call from the lead you're sending them, and then on that call, giving their phone number to that lead, like that way, you're never going to know if the deal's closed or not because you can't really track it, right? So that's why commission deals are very difficult to track because your client can always go behind your back in some way, shape or form. But again, the best way to track it is like just trying to listen to some of the call recordings. That's really all you can do.
Jennifer, you had
Yeah,
a question?
like I said, my employee doing that reading, but so what application you say you're using for tracking the calls?
Yeah, it's call tracking metrics. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Metrics.
Jennifer, go ahead.
So thank you. Going back to the my client needs service, when you say I'm not in that industry, I've gotten, okay, well, who are you? How are they your clients? And what industry are you in? So do you then come back as you are an agency and just tell them, yes, I am an agency?
Yeah, could you repeat that again? Sorry, I got a little bit confused.
When going back to just saying, like, when you're prospecting, you're kind of saying my client needs service, in whatever, I'm not in that industry. Do you service that industry? And they say, well, how are they your clients? And who are you? Do you then say to them, I am a marketing agency?
Yeah, so I'd just be upfront from the start, just let them know who you are, what you do. And like, if they're not cool with it, that's fine. Like I'll find someone else, right? Yeah, I think just honesty is the best policy really, is just letting them know, hey, yeah, we generate like, concreting leads for this business, for concreting businesses or just whatever you do, right? Just being open about that from the start. That way they know exactly what you do and you can be like, have a genuine conversation because they already know that.
I have a ton of leads coming in for home remodeling, concrete, and I'm just having a hard time getting them to pay. They're good quality leads coming in and they're just trying to get them to pay is difficult. I have all of them on a spreadsheet, they're called tracking. I go over them and it's just like, trying to get them to either pay per lead or pay per commission. It's like, here they are, they're all coming in and I'm just struggling to get paid on them.
Yeah, definitely. So it's such a common issue that people have is they have the leads coming in and they just struggle finding someone. And that's why, back to what I showed before is it's so important is really setting your standards for like that type of business owner that you want taking the leads, right? And actually doing the effort to find them. Like, don't just settle on anyone. Don't just send your leads to anyone. You want to be really strict on those standards, right? So in your case, like you want to be reaching out to as many people as you want. And one thing that Paul mentioned just before that's really important is like fish where the fish are, right? Where they're spending money. Like look for people who are spending money on ads already. Look for people who are running Facebook ads. Look for people who are running Google ads. Those are the kind of clients you want because they're already spending money in marketing and it makes more sense for them to spend money for the leads that you have, right? So those are better types of clients to reach out to as opposed to just trying to work out commission deals with business owners who just want quick leads, right? And who aren't really making a lot of money in their own business already. They're kind of broke, right? They're just looking for quick leads and they're desperate. So they're not really going to be the best paying client for you. So just be very wary of like where you search for finding someone to take your leads because where you search is just as important as who you find.
Got it. Thank you.
All good. All good. What else we got?
All right, that's gonna be it for today because I got phone calls and all that jazz. We're gonna definitely have you back on, Tom, and I'm gonna definitely be emailing you a lot more. But if you can send me that the one stop that you had, and that way I can put it on the back end. I'm gonna put this in the back end, and we'll post it in the group. And I'm sure he'll have. I'm gonna send it to you so you could have it in your group as well. And I'll tag you and everything. I appreciate it, guys, and I will see you again. And if I'm scheduled to be on call with y'all, I will talk to y'all later.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Perfect.
Yep, thank you.
See you later, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.